Welcome everyone, Maayong Adlaw. We are the Group 1 and today we are excited to present our topic about cognitive and metacognitive factors in education. In this presentation, we'll be exploring how cognitive processes like memory, perception, and problem solving affect learning. We'll also dive into metacognition or the thinking about thinking aspect, which includes strategies like self reflection, planning, and self monitoring. These factors are crucial in helping students become more effective learners, and they play a big role in modern teaching strategies. So let's get started as we break down this concept and discuss how understanding them can help improve educational outcomes for students at all levels. So now, be ready, be attentive, and listen as we discuss the cognitive and metacognitive factors in education.
Now let's go to the cognitive and metacognitive factors of learning. The first one is the nature of the learning process. The learning of complex subject matter is most effective when it is an intentional process of constructing meaning from information and experience. The learning process refers to the acquisition of knowledge, skills, behaviors, or attitudes through experience, study, or teaching. It involves a series of stages, including the first one, perception and attention. Learning begins with noticing or becoming aware of something. The brain filters and selects information from the environment that is deemed relevant. The second one is encoding and processing. The brain processes this information, encoding it into memory. This involves organizing the new knowledge and linking it with what is already known, making it easier to retrieve later. The third one is storage. After encoding, the information is stored in the brain. The nature of the storage can vary depending on the type of memory, example, short-term or long-term memory. Repeated practice or rehearsal helps strengthen the stored memories. The fourth one is retrieval. Once information is stored, the next step is retrieval, the process of accessing and using the stored information. This can be influenced by various factors such as context or cues available during recall. The fifth one is feedback and adjustment. Learning often involves a feedback loop where mistakes or successes help refine the learning process. By assessing what worked or didn't work, learners adjust their strategies and approaches to improve future performance. Lastly, reflection and consolidation. After retrieving information, reflection helps deepen understanding. This can involve actively reviewing or discussing the material to integrate it into existing knowledge frameworks. Learning is not always a linear process and can vary based on the individual, the environment, and the type of knowledge or skill being acquired. It can be influenced by cognitive factors, example, attention, motivation, emotional states, prior experiences, and social interactions.
Now, let's move on to the second factor of the cognitive and metacognitive learning, which is the goals of the learning process. So, learning goals are a key part of how we learn, or the cognitive, and how we think about learning, or the metacognitive. They give our learning a purpose and direction. Basically, it's about knowing what you want to achieve through learning. So here's how learning goals work in the classroom. So in a classroom, learning goals can be set by the teacher, the student, or both. Effective learning happens when students understand and buy into the goals. For example, instead of just saying, learn about photosynthesis, A teacher might say, be able to explain the process of photosynthesis and its importance to the ecosystem. This gives students a clearer target. So in this factor, the teacher plays a crucial role in, first, setting clear and achievable goals. It means the teacher breaks down big topics into smaller, manageable learning goals. Example, instead of saying, learn about the solar system, the teacher says, be able to identify the planets in our solar system and explain their key features. Second, making goals relevant. So here, the teacher connects learning to students' interests and real-world applications. For example, when teaching about fractions, the teacher relates it to cooking or sharing pizza, making it more engaging. So the third one is promoting self-reflection. So here, it encourages students to think about their own learning process, about how they can improve. Example, the teacher asks students to write in a learning journal, reflecting on what they have learned and how they learned it. The fourth one is providing a feedback, helping students understand their progress and identify areas for growth. This isn't just about grades, but about how they are learning. For example, instead of just giving a grade on a test, the teacher provides specific comments on how the student can improve their understanding of a certain concepts. The fifth one is creating a supportive environment. Here, the students feel comfortable taking a risk and asking questions. For example, the teacher encourages students to ask questions and work together, fostering a sense of community and collaboration.
The third factor of cognitive and metacognition is the construction of knowledge. The construction of knowledge refers to the active process through which the students build their own understanding and meaning by integrating the new information that they have learned to their prior knowledge, to the existing knowledge. So this factor emphasizes that the students are not passive recipients of the information. Instead, they engage, reflect, and manipulate the information to create their own understanding. Because if the new information that they have learned is not integrated to their existing knowledge, that information will remain isolated and cannot be applied to new situations. So it is important that the knowledge that they currently learned will connect or can be connected to their prior knowledge. So what is the role of the teacher here? So the teacher acts as a facilitator, mentor, guide, and he or she create an environment that actively build the understanding of the student. So as a future educator, it is important that we should connect the new information that we will give to the students to their prior knowledge. In what way? Through we can give them relatable examples or activities like reflection papers, or we can utilize concept mapping or thematic organization strategies, so that the students will be able to integrate the new learnings to their past learnings.
So the fourth factor of the cognitive and metacognitive learning is the strategic thinking. It is a forward-looking mindset and approach to decision-making that involves setting long-term goals and planning to achieve them in the most effective way. So it is combined with analysis, creativity, and foresight, considering both internal and external factors, risks, and opportunities. So the strategic thinkers anticipate future trends, assesses potential challenges, and seek to understand the big picture, ultimately aiming to position themselves or their organization for sustained success. And it also involves making informed decisions based on a deep understanding of a situation, while cognitive and metacognitive strategies are skills that help with learning and thinking. So these are the key elements of strategic thinking. The first one is the vision. So having a clear, inspiring picture of a desired future state. The second one is the analysis. It is the evaluating internal strengths, weaknesses, external opportunities, and traits. And the third one is the adaptability. It is being open to change and ready to pivot in response to unforeseen obstacles or opportunities. And the fourth one is the systems thinking. Understanding how different elements interact within a larger system. And the last one is the long-term focus. Making decisions based on future impacts, not just immediate needs. For example, in a first grade classroom, the teacher sets up several learning stations with different activities, a reading center, a math center, and a science center. So, students rotate through each center during the week, allowing them to work on different skills independently or with minimal guidance. So the teacher can then provide focused attention to one group at a time. This strategic approach helps students develop independence, time management, and a love for learning in different subjects, all while enabling the teacher to support individual student needs more effectively. This example shows how strategic thinking in the classroom can help maximize learning, promote student engagement, and achieve long-term educational goals in a structured and thoughtful way.
The fifth principle is all about thinking about our own thinking, also known as metacognition, is the higher strategies for selecting and monitoring mental operations facilitate creative and critical thinking. So metacognition is essential in classroom learning as it encourages students to actively engage in their education by reflecting on their thinking process. By helping students recognize their strengths and weaknesses, identify effective learning strategies, and monitor their own progress, teachers can promote self-awareness and critical thinking. Students learn to ask questions about their understanding and approach to learning, which fosters ownership of their educational journey. Additionally, metacognition enhances self-regulation and adaptive learning. So when students understand how they learn, they can adjust their study habits, seek help when needed, and develop alternative strategies for tackling challenges. So this proactive mindset not only improves academic success, but also cultivates independent, lifelong learners, equipping them with valuable skills for their future.
Talk about number 6 factors of cognitive and metacognitive, which is the context of learning. So learning is influenced by environmental factors, culture, technology, and instructional practice. This encompasses both cognitive and metacognitive aspect of learning. So let's break down each factor. Number 1 is environmental factors. So this refers to the physical and social surrounding in which learning takes place. For example, a quiet, well-lit study space promotes concentration while a chaotic environment hinders it. So this presence of supportive peers can encourage
collaborations, and knowledge sharing. Example of environmental factors is a comfortable classroom temperature, access to necessary resources such as books, computers, and many others. Then a supportive learning in community, noise level, and the overall organizations of learning environment. Next is culture. So cultural background shapes learning styles, values, beliefs, and approaches to problem solving. Individualistic cultures might emphasize independent learning, while collectivist culture may prioritize group work. So cultural beliefs about education and knowledge acquisition also influence how students approach learning. Example of cultural is a student from a culture that values rote learning might struggle with more inquiry-based approaches. Students from different cultural background may have varying communication styles impacting their ability to practice in class discussion. So next is the technology. So technology provide access to vast amount of information and diverse learning tools. This use of educational software, online stimulation, and interactive learning platforms that can enhance cognitive understanding. Simultaneously, students need develop metacognitive skills to evaluate the reliability and validity of online information. So examples of technology is using educational apps to practice math skills and using online research tools to gather information for a project. Then another is critically evaluating the credibility of online sources. Then and using technology to collaborate on project. Then next is the instructional practice. So the teaching method employed significantly affect learning outcomes. Effective instructional practice cater to diverse learning styles and provide opportunities for active learning, feedback, and reflections. The clarity and organizations of instructions directly impact cognitive understanding. For example, a teacher using practice-based learning to engage students. Next is provide them a clear explanations and example. Give the students opportunities for self-assessment and using formative assessments to guide instructions to the students. So overall, the environmental factors, culture, technology, and instructional practice, these factors interact to shape both cognitive, which is the knowledge acquisitions and processing, then and cognitive, which is the self-regulations and monitoring of learning. This emphasizes the aspect of the learning process of the students.
In developing metacognition, first, metacognition appears to be one of the most powerful predictors of learning. Second, metacognition is thinking about thinking, knowing what we know and what we don't know. So in developing metacognition or thinking about thinking refers to the awareness and understanding of one's own thought processes. Its predictive power in learning stems from the ability to monitor comprehension, identify knowledge gaps, and adjust learning strategies accordingly. For example, a student employing metacognition might realize they are struggling to understand a complex math concept. So, they actively seek out additional resources like tutoring or practice problems rather than possibly continuing to struggle. This self-regulated learning approach, driven by metacognitive awareness, significantly boosts learning outcomes compared to passive learning strategies. The basic metacognitive strategies. First, connecting new information to knowledge. Where, for example, a teacher explaining fractions by relating them to students'
prior knowledge of sharing pizzas helps connect new information to existing understanding. This allows the students to build upon what they already know, making the new concept more accessible and memorable. Number 2, selecting thinking strategies deliberately. Example, when faced with a complex problem, a student might consciously choose to break it down into smaller parts, a strategy before attempting a solution, rather than jumping in haphazardly. This deliberate selection of a problem-solving strategy demonstrates metacognitive control over their thinking process. Number 3. Planning, monitoring, and evaluating thinking processes. This planning involves deciding how to approach a task. Monitoring checks progress and understanding. Evaluating assesses the effectiveness of the chosen strategy and the outcome. Number 4. A thinking person is in charge of her behavior, where, for example, a thoughtful individual consciously directs their actions based on deliberate reflection and decision-making rather than impulse or external influence. Here are the metacognitive knowledge and skills. First, being aware of one's own learning and memory capabilities and what learning tasks can realistically be accomplished. Number 2, knowing which learning strategies are effective and which are not. Number 3, planning an approach to a learning task that is likely to be successful. Number 4, using effective learning strategies. And number 5, monitoring one's present knowledge state. Number 6, knowing effective strategies for retrieval of previously stored information. Overall, metacognitive knowledge encompasses awareness of one's own thinking, processes, strengths, and weaknesses. Metacognitive skills involve the ability to plan, monitor, and evaluate one's thinking to improve learning and problem solving.
And now, let me discuss to you about the 6 strategies for developing metacognitive behavior. First is the identifying what you know and what you don't know. The next one is talking about the thinking. The third one is keeping a thinking journal. The fourth one is planning and self-regulation. The next one is the debriefing the thinking process, and the last one is the self-evaluation. So let me tackle first about the identifying what you know and what you don't know. This strategy involves recognizing gaps in your knowledge and skills. It's essential to be aware of your strengths and areas where you need more information or practice. This awareness can guide your learning process. Example: before studying for an exam, a student lists topics they feel confident about and those they find challenging. They focus their study time on the challenging topics, filling in knowledge gaps. The next one is talking about thinking. This strategy involves verbalizing your thoughts process, which can make abstract your thoughts clearer. Talking about thinking helps you and others understand and reflect on mental processes, which can lead to better learning strategies. Example: a student explains to a peer how they approach solving math problems, breaking down their thought process step by step. This not only helps their peer but reinforces the student's own understanding. The next one is the keeping a thinking journal. Writing down your thoughts, challenges, and reflections helps you track your mental processes and understand how you approach different problems. It allows you to see your progress over time and learn from the past experiences. Example: after each study session, a student writes about what strategies works, what didn't, and any sights gained. Reviewing this journal later helps them refine their approach to similar tasks. The next one is the planning and self-regulation. Planning involves setting goals and deciding on the steps to reach them, while self-regulation means monitoring progress and adjusting as needed. These skills keep you on track and help you adapt when things don't go as planned. Example: before starting a project, a student creates a timeline with milestones and checks their progress weekly, making adjustments to their plan if they fall behind. The second to the last one is the debriefing the thinking. After completing a task, debriefing involves reflecting on how you approach it. What worked, what didn't, and why. This can lead to insights that improve future performances. Example: after giving a presentation, a student thinks about their preparation, how they handled unexpected questions, and what they might do differently next time. The last one is the self-evaluation. Self-evaluation means assessing your own performance and understanding. By being honest with yourself about what went well and what didn't, you can identify areas for improvement and celebrate success. Example: a student reviews their test results and looks at both their correct and incorrect answers, analyzing what led to mistakes and what strategies led to correct answers, which help them improve on future tests. Now, let me tell you about the distinction between cognitive and metacognitive learning strategies. Cognitive and metacognitive strategies and skills are closely related in terms of them both involving cognition and skills, but they are conceptually distinct in at least one major way. Weinstein and Mayer state that a cognitive learning strategy is a plan of orchestrating cognitive resources such as attention and long-term memory to help teach a learning goal. This refers to methods that helps learners use their mental resources like attention, memory, and perception effectively for specific tasks. These strategies are usually goal-directed and involve effort and intentionality, meaning learners actively engage in them to achieve a particular learning outcome. However, these strategies are situation-specific, meaning they are tailored to particular task or context. For example, using mnemonic devices to memorize vocabulary is a cognitive strategy designed for a specific situation. In contrast, metacognitive learning strategies are broader and focus on planning, monitoring, and evaluating one's learning process. Rather than being tied to a particular task, metacognitive strategies involves general skills that help learners become aware of how they learn and how they can control and improve their learning. These include setting learning goals, tracking one's understanding, and adjusting methods as needed. Because these strategies are more about self-regulation, they have a universal application across various tasks and contexts. They are essential for more sophisticated, independent problem solving and are often associated with adult learning and complex thinking. In summary, while cognitive strategies are specific techniques for learning tasks, metacognitive strategies are overarching. In summary, while cognitive strategies are specific techniques for learning tasks, metacognitive strategies are overarching approaches that guide how to plan, monitor, and assess the learning process itself. The question is, how to establish the metacognitive and environment? Now, let me tackle about establishing the metacognitive and environment. A metacognitive environment in education is one where both teachers and students actively think about their own thinking processes. This type of environment aims to enhance students' awareness and control over their learning, enabling them to become more effective learning. In metacognitive environment, planning and collaboration plays key roles. Teachers, school library, media specialists, and students work together to establish a learning plan. This plan includes strategies for thinking and learning, which are discussed and evaluated as the learning progresses. This ongoing evaluation helps students to reflect their understanding and adjust their approaches as needed. Teachers play a crucial role by modeling metacognitive strategies themselves. They demonstrate how to plan, monitor, and assess one's thinking, which helps students observe these processes in action. For instance, a teacher might model how they approach a complex problem, explaining each step of their thinking, thus showing students how to break down a task and tackle it methodically. This guidance is especially valuable in subjects that require critical thinking and research, as these activities naturally invite students to practice and refine their metacognitive skills. To support metacognitive learning, teachers should focus on how tasks are completed, not just on the end results. This means discussing not just on the end results. This means discussing the process of learning itself, which allows students to understand that learning is not only about mastering content, but also about developing strategies to approach and solve new problems. By setting goals together with students, teachers help them see the importance of understanding how they learn, rather than just what they learn. This way, students can transfer these thinking processes to other tasks and improve their learning overall. In sum, creating a metacognitive environment involves fostering an awareness of thinking through planning, modeling, and reflection. Teacher guides students in becoming mindful of their learning strategies, thus building skills that go beyond specific subject and empower lifelong learning.
Metacognitive knowledge can play an important role in student learning and by implication, in the way students are taught and assessed in the classroom. First, metacognitive knowledge of strategies and tasks, as well as self-knowledge, is linked to the following: learn and perform in the classroom. Students know about the different kinds of strategies for learning, thinking, and problem solving. Different strategies or memory tasks, like for example, are more likely to use them to recall relevant information, and knows the general strategies for thinking and problem solving, like use in confronting in classroom tasks. So here are the related to transferring of knowledge. First is ability to use knowledge gained in the situation. Second, the new task required knowledge and skills that they have not yet learned. And the third one, in this case, they are likely to use more general strategies to help the student think about or solve the problem. In terms of implication for teaching, it is important that metacognitive knowledge is embedded within the usual content-driven lesson in the different subject areas. In terms of implication for assessment, it is important to know how it is used by the students to facilitate their own learning. In this sense, it is more likely that any assessment of metacognitive knowledge by teachers will be informal rather than formal. Both cognitive and metacognitive factors are essential for effective learning. While cognitive processes enables us to acquire knowledge, metacognitive skills empower us to take control of our own learning journey. By fostering both cognitive and metacognitive abilities, individuals can become more effective, self-directed learners, ultimately achieving greater understanding and mastery. That's all. Thank you.